The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald. Revision by Daniel Olson. Chapter 1. Of the Princess and the Hidden People. In a kingdom of craggy peaks and deep, shadowed valleys there once reigned a king whose domain was as wild and beautiful as the mountains themselves. Upon the stony crown of the highest mountain stood his palace, a grand and breathtaking sentinel of gray stone and soaring towers. It was here that a daughter was born to him, a princess they named Irene. But the queen, her mother, was of a delicate constitution, and so, soon after her birth, the infant princess was sent away from the splendors of the court. She was given into the care of country folk, to be raised in a great stout house that was half fortress and half farmhouse, nestled upon the slopes of a neighboring mountain, halfway between the green meadows of its base and the wind-swept silence of its peak. The princess was a sweet and gentle child, and at the time our tale begins, she was perhaps 8 years of age, though she seemed to grow wiser with every passing season. Her face was fair, her features fine, and she had eyes like 2 fragments of the midnight sky, each holding a star dissolved within its liquid blue. You would have thought those eyes remembered their celestial home, for they were so often turned upward, gazing as if in search of something lost. Indeed, the very ceiling of her nursery was painted a deep azure, and scattered with silver stars, a loving mimicry of the firmament. Yet I doubt the princess had ever beheld the true night sky, for a reason that must now be told. You see, these mountains were not solid stone. Beneath their sunlit slopes lay a secret world, a labyrinth of hollow spaces, of immense silent caverns and winding passages that twisted through the deep rock. Some of these hidden ways were carved by ancient subterranean rivers that still murmured in the darkness. Others were crystal-studded grottos that would blaze with all the colors of the rainbow if a lantern were brought within. Little would have been known of this underworld, had it not been for the miners. For generations men had dug into the mountains, sinking great deep shafts and carving long galleries to seek the rich veins of ore. In their endless delving, they sometimes broke through into these natural caverns, stumbling upon wonders and darknesses never meant for the eyes of men. And it was known that a few of these caverns had far-flung openings, emerging like dark mouths onto a lonely mountainside or into the bottom of a steep ravine. Now, within this subterranean realm lived a strange and ancient race of beings. Some called them gnomes, others kobolds, but they were most commonly known as goblins. An old legend, whispered by firesides in the valleys, told that these creatures had once lived above ground, in the light of the sun, and were much like other folk. But a great dispute had arisen with the king of that age. Whether he laid upon them taxes they deemed too severe, or demanded of them customs they would not abide, the legends differed. The result, however, was the same. The king's laws grew stricter, his hand heavier, until one day the entire race vanished from the face of the land. They did not flee to another country, but instead took refuge in the deep places of the earth, sealing the ways behind them. From that time forward they came out only at night, and then but rarely, showing themselves to few. It was said that generations spent away from the sun, in the cold, damp, dark, had warped them. They were no longer merely ugly, but had become either frightfully hideous or bizarrely grotesque in face and form. Their bodies grew stunted and misshapen, yet their minds grew sharper and more cunning. They learned secrets of stone and shadow, and could achieve things no mortal craftsman could comprehend. As their cunning grew, however, so too did their malice. Their great delight was to devise trouble for the sunlit people who now lived in the world above. They still held enough kinship for one another to keep them from simple cruelty, but they harbored a deep and bitter ancestral grudge against the folk who had inherited their lands, and most especially against the descendants of the king who had driven them into the dark. Though dwarfed and twisted, their strength was formidable, matched only by their spite. In time they established their own kingdom, and king in the shadows, whose chief purpose, beyond their own affairs, was to invent new torments for their neighbors above. And so it will now be clear why the little Princess Irene, with her sky-blue eyes, had never seen the stars. Her guardians lived in constant fear of the goblins, and would not dare let her out of the fortified house after twilight, no matter how many...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?